Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the Mobility Mindset. This is, I think, the fifth, maybe sixth episode now. Sorry for screaming in the mic there, but I'm taking the bull by the horns here. I'm Mark, that's Sarah. We're here and we're introducing our awesome teammate, Abby, who, to be honest, we're just going to kind of let talk for a little bit. She's been the place that we've been funneling all of you guys to go and speak with because she's kind of our superstar who's helping out everybody who wants a Trexo. Abby, how about it?
Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited you're doing a podcast now. This is good stuff.
It's very weird, but it is fun at the same time.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it.
Weird.
An excuse to talk to you guys. Well, yeah, my name is Abby Zacharitz. I am a mother of 5. I have one child with an acquired disability. He acquired his disability at 18 months. Threw me into this world, and I've been sprinting ever since, as most families that have, whether you have a child born with a disability or it's acquired, or you have a diagnosis or something happens, it's, as you guys know, it's a sprint and a marathon and all the above. So started our journey about 10 years ago, almost 11 now. And yeah, it's been one heck of a ride. My world was completely shook upside down and revealed. Honestly, I feel like I saw a world that was hidden, that I never knew about. And not by any kind of dismissiveness. It just wasn't a part of my life. Like it was something I never saw. And so I see it everywhere now, but I never used to notice it. So one of the things I'm thankful for out of our journey is realizing that there's this entire group of caregivers and there's this entire demographic of people that have a totally different worldview. And I can see through that lens now just a little bit. And so, I became Advocacy Abby in 2014. In 2024, launched on Instagram. I just went out. I had a group on Facebook called Relentless Hope, where I just interviewed experts and told people about grants because I had kind of become a guru. And in 2024, January, I launched Advocacy Abby and just started posting grants every day. And I was like, I wonder if people need this. Like it might just be me. It was definitely not just me. I found that out quickly. I had doctors and therapists and parents reaching out saying, oh my gosh, I never knew about this. I got this covered for the first time. And I really saw a need. And so out of that, I kind of developed a training where I could teach people how to unlock these things because I had been very successful in the 10 years before. And it's just grown exponentially since there. I've partnered with tons and tons of different not-for-profits and organizations, became the director of family advocacy for Support Now. I'm now on the Parent Empowerment Network board, their committee. And I'm just like, riding this wave of support, and it's awesome. Like it's the best feeling in the world when I feel like it's also the hardest because it's a rocky road for every person I talk to, and it's hard, and I've lived that road, but it's been amazing to feel like I actually can make a difference in someone's life. And so yeah, that's where I am.
Amazing. Can I ask you a quick question for those people out there that don't know? What are grants?
Yeah. So grants, when I first started into this world, everybody I spoke to thought they were for not-for-profits. Like grants, get a grant writer and they apply for these huge amounts of money from the government, and they're just basically a simple term for like scholarships or foundations giving money to individuals. So when I speak of grants, I'm speaking of individual grants. So these are organizations that will cover someone's Trexo, partially or full, directly to an individual family. And it's usually created by a foundation that was probably in your shoes. Mom and dad saw a need, filled a need, created something, and now they're blessing lots of people.
Awesome.
Abby, question for you. Since you, forgive the term, you got thrown into this community, how did you get started? I mean, I know for me, it's super difficult to figure out funding. You use the term guru. How did you figure out and find things? How did you figure it all out?
Do you mind if I actually go back to tell you
Yeah.
why okay. So in 2014, me and my husband had moved to Gainesville, Florida, and my husband was a pastor and we were starting a church, and we were celebrating our first Easter as a community, and we were really excited, and we had our staff meeting. Directly after our staff meeting, I was pregnant with my 5th child, my Luke, and directly after our staff meeting, our son Wyatt, who was 18 months at the time, had gotten into our pool, and there was a latch that was broken, and he ended up having a near drowning. When we found him, me and Dad found him. When we found him, we were immediately started CPR, called 911, found out that the fire department was actually, typically they'd be about 15 to 20 minutes away, but they had got called on a bogus call. And so they were only 3 minutes away. So they actually got to our house really, really quick, took over. I rode in the front of the ambulance with them. And I remember like turning around and looking at their faces and realizing like this is not going well, because all these grown men who see this all day, every day had a look of panic in their face. And so I just began to pray and scream and cry, and was put into the waiting room. When we got to the hospital, they took him in. They said, stay here. I was on my face praying and just asking God to save my baby. And a nurse came in and she said, she came in, I began to say, how's Wyatt? How's my Wyatt? And she said, he's not doing good. And we're going to bring you in to say goodbye to him. And so when I began to scream and cry, and I love this woman, by the way, because she made it where I could go in, because had I not controlled myself, they wouldn't have let me until they were done and everybody had left the room. And she said, pull it together now, or you will not be able to come into the room. And so I immediately stood up, stopped everything, because nothing was going to keep me from Wyatt. So I walked into the room, and I didn't know this was protocol at the time. I'd never had an emergency, never been in healthcare field. There was 15 people in the room all around Wyatt, but there's one man doing chest compressions. And when I walked in, they stopped. And I later found out from the doctor that that's standard protocol, to let the parents see the action of them quitting so that they know it's done. And I began to immediately cry, don't stop working on him. And Dr. Bunalai, he was an intensivist for 17 years. So he saw this, unfortunately, weekly. He would see kids come in for near drownings. And he said, show mom his heart. Because they had this device, Echo, where they put the cream on your chest and they look, because they wanted to make sure that his heart wasn't beating, and they had already looked and it wasn't. And they put that on his heart. And I remember looking up at the screen, and I was so confused because I saw and I could hear, all of a sudden I heard boom, boom, boom. And I look in the room and everybody just jumped on Wyatt. He had incredibly miraculously come back. And they had never seen anything like this happen before. He had been gone for 40 minutes at this point. So they rush us upstairs. They tell us, they prepared a bed for the PICU. And we were there for 52 days. During that time, the first night, they said the odds of him making it through the night are really close to nil. Then he did. And then they said, okay, he's probably not going to make it 3 days. Most kids, their organs fail and things happen. And then he did. His organs started to miraculously just work, which was so mind-boggling, because in the MRI, all the parts of his brain that controlled those things were gone. They were completely devastated. And so they just couldn't understand, and things just started to work. Then they said he'll probably be, on a tube for his life. He won't be able to breathe on his own. And then he started to breathe on his own. And then he just kept, everything they would put a limit on, he kept passing. And so they were like, we're just going to stop limiting this kid, because clearly he doesn't listen. And my husband turned to me when we were at the hospital and said, as long as he's fighting, we're going to fight too. And so just from that point on, we for years I had fight or flight mentality. I was just all or nothing, constantly fighting, going forward for therapies, treatment, whatever he need. But we found really quickly that traditional medicine, we had exhausted that. He was doing physical therapy, he was doing all the things he could, but there was more he needed. There was this whole world of hyperbaric oxygen therapy, Trexo, there was stem cell therapy. There's all these things that were emerging, and they had studies in a lot of these that they're proven, they're just not covered by insurance, and they're thousands and thousands of dollars. I was a stay-at-home mom with 5 kids and one who just had a major medical accident. And my husband was a pastor. We had no money. And so I just had this mentality that money was not going to be the reason something was a no for my kid. I will find the money. And so I got on the internet. And I had a friend tell me about a foundation called the Live Like Jake Foundation, who's for near drowning children. And she helps kids get swim lessons, but then she also will help kids that have survived these drownings do therapies, non-traditional things that aren't covered by insurance. And when I found her, I realized, like, wait a minute, there's probably more like her out there. And I started to do digging, and I started finding grants to cover our airfare, grants to cover our travel, grants to cover the gas, grants to cover the stem cells. And I just started accumulating this list. And parents would call me or DM me a lot and social, and they'd say, I heard about you. We've been praying for your son. My neighbor went through this. How did you get your kid to hyperbaric oxygen? Because they said it's really expensive. I'm like, yeah, it is. This is what I did. And it was always the big things were a combination of fundraising and grants. But I just started making this list and then started realizing there was a pattern to the people that told me they were getting denied and the people that told me they were getting it. It was like quality of application and how they were applying. So started developing a system for that. And just kind of started word of mouth, started telling people what I was doing and seeing success for them. And it just kind of took off from there.
Wow. Thank you for sharing your story, Abby. I know it's not the easiest, but I know personally when I share my story, it's kind of a healing, and it helps every time we share. And like I said, I thank you for sharing. It's not the easiest, but thank you.
Yeah. It's, people don't talk about this a lot, especially in Florida, but all the United States, it's the number one reason for accidental death under the age of 5. So more people need to talk about it. It happens. It can happen while you're in the pool with your kid, and it has to many people. Yeah.
It does happen all too often. A very, very similar, very close call happened with my brother and his daughter. They found his daughter at the bottom of the pool. Thankfully, didn't have the same result, but yeah, it does happen a lot.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm okay. I mean, my one eye's watering.
Yeah, you're good.
Everybody home that's watching, if you're getting a little upset, get your little tissue out, dab, ladies, dab. Men, if you just want to, we're okay with that. Okay, let's do a little 180 circle and get back on track with grants for those that are out there that are hungry, that are still, you just motivate them to get a little more hungrier, to work harder and harder. Where would you tell a family that's just starting out right now? Where would you tell them, hey, go here? Where do you want them to start? Tell them about your website.
Yeah. So if you go to advocacyabby.com, you can read more about what I offer. I have the world's largest, in conjunction with Support Now, we've created the largest database in the world for grants. And what's really cool about it is it can be sorted by location, diagnosis, and need. So we have an entire team that reviews these grants on a monthly basis. They're going through the grants. If they open up, we click, we turn it back on. If they're closed, we turn the application part off so that you don't have to do this work all to find out that you don't qualify for that grant, or it's not open, or it's not, that's really frustrating, right? And so we wanted our website to be living and breathing. And so what's really cool about like Trexo is you guys have customized lists that you can show grants that have worked with you in the past, but also individuals can just go to the grant website and create their own free account and have access to this for life, for as long as their child needs it or themselves. Because we do have some adult grants too. Pediatrics is definitely the majority, just in general in the world, there's just more pediatric grants. But there are some adult grants too for like ALS, cancer survivors, or people that are in cancer treatment, stuff like that.
Awesome. So this can be used for basically anybody who needs it, not just children who need Trexos.
Yeah. And actually, when you go to my site, or if you work with one of the Trexo reps or one of the organizations, not-for-profits I partner with, they have a direct link to me. And so for those people that are feeling like, okay, I'm like a little overwhelmed, I don't know where to start, I've never fundraised before. And by the way, when people think of fundraising, so I do grants, but I also specialize in fundraising. It's not it's not only crowdsourcing, right? It's not only just, putting it out to your community, which, by the way, I have a very proven technique to do and makes it feel much more comfortable for families than just putting it out and hoping people see it and give, right? I have a proven method. It works when people go through the steps. That being said, I have another lady I'm working with, huge goal, $50,000, doing multiple treatments. We did crowdsourcing. Her community was able to do about 13,000. We did grants. We've gotten about 10,000 from that. And now she's doing a golf tournament. And it's all on one platform. We're using her Support Now registry to kind of funnel all of those things to keep it streamlined for her so she can thank everybody and have it organized for her. And so it's not so sometimes people get their mind stuck on, I wouldn't want to do this. I wouldn't want to do a GoFundMe. But it's that you got to shift your mind into there's things that will add value to your community, and your community wants to add value to you. They want to see someone in their community succeed, and they want to know they were a part of it, right? Like they want to know when they see your kid walking down the street in the Trexo, I actually kind of gave towards that. It's pretty, like, it's the best feeling in the world to know, like, I helped someone. There's a girl I'm working with right now, and she has cancer, and their family's trying to get her dream home. And there's been like $250,000 raised, right, for this home. I feel like as a donor, it would make me feel like I've helped her purchase a home. Like, how cool is that, right? Like, to me, it's just the coolest feeling to be able to do that. And so part of when they work with me is I coach people on like their mindset too. Like, this is how you want to see it. When you see your friend need something, aren't you excited to give? Are you excited to support them? And then also letting them know, like, hey, and we're going to apply for grants too. Like, we're going to do these things too. It's awesome when the organizer of a fundraiser gets to say, guess what, guys? I know my goal says, 25,000, but I've already raised 10,000 in grants. So now we just need 15 more. Like, it's a really cool feeling. And so, yeah, I kind of lost my train of thought there, but I just want to
Question, twofold. What's the catch? Is there a catch? And if there isn't, what if there's just someone out there that just is like, I don't even know how to find keys on my keyboard, and I don't even know what to do. I just need help. Here's my money. What do I do? Can you help me?
Yeah, so I don't
want to do it.
Yeah, so my standard answer, because I do have the occasional person that'll go through training and be like, can I just pay you to do all this? No. And this is why. And it's not an offense. I mean, I guess somebody could pay me an egregious amount, but it would be too egregious. I want to teach you how to fish. Like, I want the rest of your life to be simpler. And it truly, truly will if you just learn these methods. It is so nice. At this point in my stage, so I've been doing grants for 10 years for my son personally. I have foundations call me at this point and say, hey, we got an extra $5,000. Do you need anything? I've had that for 3 years now. You develop relationships when they see you come back year and apply again. And I teach the technique I teach. So I teach this toolbox method. I teach you how to find all this information, put it in one spot, and make it super easy. It is simple. Personal grants are not like not-for-profit grants. That's a lot of writing, a lot of pitching. You don't have to do all that. Some of them, actually, you could do in 10 seconds. There's a couple of them that are lottery, and I thought there's no way anybody's going to win this. I won it. I actually won the lottery on it. It's just a matter of learning how to do it. And so I would rather teach somebody to swim than, hand them a floaty until it deflates. And so personally, when a Trexo person or anybody comes to me through my personal link, they don't have to pay for that. They don't have to pay a fee. I teach them how to find the grants or how to fundraise, or a combination of both, or one or the other. Sometimes people only need me for a grant. They need a $5,000 bath chair or a stroller, which is insane that we're saying $5,000 stroller, right? Like, insane.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
But that's the world we live in. And so there's a grant for that. But sometimes it's a larger price point. And so one of the cool things about grants is you can stack them. Like, multiple organizations will come together to help cover a piece of equipment for a child. And so that's a really cool method I like to use when it's a larger price point.
Amazing. So I have a question for you that came from a conversation I had with a family this morning who has a 12-year-old daughter, and they've already done a GoFundMe campaign, and they feel like they've already milked their community base, and they don't want to do that. But at the same time, they desperately want to get a Trexo for their child and they can't afford it. What kind of options are there working with you for families like that?
So my first question to that family would be when? When did you do the GoFundMe? Like, was it this year? Was it 3 years ago? When was it? If it was multiple years ago, I would show them how to position it in a way that it felt really genuine, authentic for them, and less is not a word, but ASCII, like less needy, and more community-based support, like a rally cry, like we're going to war together. If they're like, there's zero chance I could do crowdfunding, like I just can't, then I would show them a way to, I would still use the support registry because it's a really great way to thank everybody, to have one streamlined place. You can journal on the one I use. I use supportnow.org for Canadians and Americans. Outside of that, there's other platforms. But when I would probably present, well, obviously grants. Like grants is a no-brainer. Like we would get as many grants we can. And sometimes, and this has happened, sometimes we found a grant to cover the entire thing, right? That has happened. That is rare. Like that's not the norm, but it does happen. So they might be the 1 or 2 or 3 people a year that get that, or they might have 3 or 4 grants that cover half of it. Then that's where I would turn to one of the techniques. So there's 3 techniques, but I've actually just this week introduced a 4th technique, and I'm really excited about it because we're going to try it with a lady today. First is a sporting event. So they can be as simple, and I'm for the simpler ones. Like the races and stuff are cool, but there's a lot of work that goes into that. And there's like bibs you have to pay for and all kinds of things. Great. If you can do that, will make a lot of money. But like there's also things like I had one for my son called Wall Balls for Wyatt. We went to local gyms, like workout places that had like, what is it called? Like where they work out really hard.
Medicine ball or the CrossFit things.
CrossFit. Yeah, we
Yeah,
went to all the local CrossFit gyms, and they came together. They had like a picture, and with a QR code for our son's registry, they all came together, and they would get somebody to donate. You know, for every wall ball you do, I'll give you 25 cents. I'll give you $1. I'll give you $2. All these amazing athletes, and not amazing athletes. I was in it, right? So I'm not an amazing athlete. All came together, and they took shifts, and there was probably 20 people lined up at the wall, and they would do their wall balls. And once they started, it started counting, and they could go the whole time, but when they're done, which most people could do like 10, 15 minutes of it, because it's hard. It is not easy. When they were done, they were out, and they went back and collected the money from everybody that said, you know, I'll do that. So that's one thing. Or I saw another lady do a cornhole tournament. Super simple. You pay for your entry. You're like, hey, $200 a team. Come, we're going to have fun. Well, you know, your prize is this. You got you a 6-pack and like a trophy. Super low key, but it's fun. People are like, hey, it's a good cause. Let's go out. We love cornhole. Things like that. I prefer those low key ones just because they're faster and they're lower cost. But I have another lady I'm working with right now. She's doing a golf tournament. The last lady I worked with that did a golf tournament raised $40,000. A lot of work on the front end, but really big returns. So there's that. There's the sporting event. So low work on the front end with like wall balls, high on golfing, but your return is bigger, the bigger it is, right? Second thing that I've seen raise $30,000 US dollars is a huge community rummage sale. And this is how this one worked. They went out and collected from their entire community, rented a storage facility, loaded it up. They actually asked for the donation of the storage for 1 month, and the storage place said, yeah, it's a good cause. We'll donate it for 1 month. Kept collecting couches, TVs, chairs, you know, clothes, of course, tons and tons of donations for clothes. Got a local church to open their building and their family center area for 1 weekend, put it all in there, sold everything for anything. They didn't haggle people. What do you want it for? You want the couch for $10? All right, it's yours. Sold it all. What they did was posted a huge poster of their registry, has a QR code at checkout. Somebody was haggling someone for, you know, $2 for the lamp, but then they donated $200. They just want to feel good about their sell, but they were fine with giving. And so lady raised $30,000 doing a rummage sale. Took some work, but it was a huge return. The third thing is raffles. This is lower work, but you have to have like a community. So like you'd want like a Girl Scout troop or a youth group or somebody, a sporting team to come alongside you, or a big family to sell raffle tickets. You go to your local restaurants and stuff, you create a basket, and then you get people, I'd say at least 2 baskets. Like sometimes like do like the sporting basket and then like the mom's night out or whatever. Get people to buy 5 tickets for 20 or 1 ticket for 5. You can do manual tickets. It gets a little tricky. I like to have it on a registry and people just go, they donate $5 and they say, I'll take basket A. You put everybody in a drawing, draw the name at the end of the day. It's a really cool way to raise a lot of money in a short amount of time. I've seen that raise about 31,000. Those are high effort fundraisers, but they're huge amounts, right? Crowdsourcing, simple effort, just clear communication. That's why I like to start with that one, because you never know. Sometimes you might think your community won't do it, and then they just do. They just come around from all over and they give, and you're all of a sudden only having to figure out 10,000 now. And guess what? There's grants for that. So the last thing, and I'll just say this real quick because I'm really excited about this one. The newest thing with crowdsourcing that I'm excited to partner with is matching. So you have your crowdsource page and you go to a local business and you say, hey, I'm going to do a match day for the next 24 hours. I would love to say McDonald's of Gainesville, Florida is going to match anything raised. Would you be willing to do a match day? And they say yes. And then you put your like encouraging, guys, 24 hours left, 18 hours left, 10 hours left. You raise maybe $2,500 and McDonald's throws in another $2,500. It's a really cool way. You get to say, hey, the local Toyota, you get to send them some goodwill, but it's big ways to raise money. So I get really excited about those things because I think people underestimate their community's ability to give.
Absolutely.
Sure.
My community paid for my son's Trexo. I totally get it.
Yeah. You just got to be willing to put yourself out there and to do it well. Sometimes people do put themselves out there in their community. There is a gap, right? But that's where grants come in. And that's where I like to see, or different ideas, okay, this didn't work, so let's do this, going back. But that comes down to personal coaching. And so that's what I provide for families is they come back and say, hey, this isn't working. Okay, great. Let's go. Let's make sure you did the steps right. And then let's go back to the drawing board.
What if someone comes to you and says that they live in like a real rural area? There's not a lot of people around. What would you say to them?
You're only seven. No one in the world is more than 7 degrees apart. It's technology. You can live out in the sticks. Actually, I spoke to a dad today. He is not the correct word, but he's similar to the Amish, and he's doing it. So
nice.
You're only so far removed from anybody in the world. Social media and texting and WhatsApp, these make it where you could reach anybody. And the cool thing is people can give from all over the world. So you could be living in, Ottawa and have family in Haiti and they can be giving. It's really cool. It's not just your local community. It's worldwide. And we've seen that. I've seen people give from over 50 countries towards different fundraisers. And so I think they have to be willing. If you're not willing, then that changes the conversation. And we'll go for grants and we'll do our best. And sometimes people are like, hey, I can do this as long as I'm only doing it for a year. Okay, well then let's try to find some grants for that,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Speaking of just a year, we have been funneling lots of people to you to help them get Trexos because of the added expense of these things. But a lot of the families that I speak with are kind of wrapping their heads around the entire price of the device. And that's not necessary, I don't think, anyway, to wrap your head around such a large number off the hop.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts?
I love, so is it accurate that in Canada you can do leasing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I work with my Canadians, I love my Canadians. I love helping them have a mind shift on the big, 40,000 or whatever the price is, the larger number that they're trying to fundraise for, to let's look year to year. Could you do a big fundraiser once a year for the next 3 years? And they're like, yeah. Or what if I told you just had to get to $12,000? If you have and I'm sure there's other little expenses to consider, but I just try to use that number. If we could get to $12,000, does that feel as intimidating? And immediately they're like, oh no, I can get to 12,000. I'm like, okay, that's all we got to get to right now. Let's get you to 12,000. You have the lease. You're going to have your kid in the Trexo for an entire year. You're going to have footage. You're going to have proof of concept. You're going to be able to show your community how this has changed your child's life. And then when you do your next rally, let's keep this for another year. You have proof of concept. Like I said, you have more time. You have 12 months to get to the next hurdle of the next year. Or by that whole year, you might get to the total amount. You don't have to think of it as, I have to get to this amount of money before I can have the Trexo. You just have to get to this amount. You can have the Trexo. And then if I told you we had 12 months before you had to have the total amount, could you do that? And their minds completely shift. They're like, oh, wait, that's totally different. I see people go from, I just don't think we'll get there, to, oh, we're going to get there. And then, to be honest, the moment you have the Trexo, there's a game changer because you realize the impact it has on your child's life. And so I think their mind kind of becomes like mine was with, money's not going to stop me. We're going to get this. And once you have that mindset, then you're good. You're good to go. You're going to get it.
I think that's the biggest thing. Mark, I can't speak for Mark, but I'm sure he'll say the same thing. We know we're both sales agents. We know that from our bosses, but we both know from a parent perspective, when your kid gets in the Trexo, it's done. Like, I remember my experience. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I always say my statement, I'll sell the kitchen sink. I sell 10 of them. It doesn't matter. Whatever I got to do to get a Trexo, I'm going to get one.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. And we tell parents that. And it's not the sense of, and I always tell my parents, it's like, I'm not trying to tell you as a salesperson. I'm trying to tell you from mom to mom, a mom's perspective. Like, just want you, especially when we have our Canadian families that live close enough to the office, especially, come in.
Yeah.
Just take a rip. Like, I love Mark's statement. Come take a rip. And just rip around the office. Because it does it. And like you just said, it's a game changer. It gives you the full perspective when your kid gets in it and the smile on the face, you just, the joy, the tears of joy. And I'll tell them, like, be ready for the tears. I don't want to exaggerate, but just have some tissue ready. Staffs are always running around trying to find a tissue box for them. And it's not about like, we're trying to make, it is sales, but the end game is, we know we're all parents of kids in Trexos and how important it is for life quality, for cardiovascular, for a multitude of things, and how important it is.
Social, emotional, and yeah, the moment you actually know. And here's the thing, when I'm showing people grants, what's really cool about Trexo specifically is we're able to present it as both therapy and equipment. So we can present it as in-home fit, like exercise, to a grant, and we can present it as a piece of equipment. And so there's grants that have covered it, that they cover therapy, but there's people that I know some Canadians I'm working with in Alberta that don't have access to therapy because they live in a very rural area. And we're presenting it as, this is the way they're going to get their walking, get a letter from your physio saying, yeah, they need to have walking daily. This is a prescribed treatment, and they can apply for these grants that way, which is really cool. And it's unique to Trexo because it's not just equipment. Like, it's so much more than that. It's being able to look your peers in the eye. It's being able to kick the soccer ball. It's being able to walk next to your parents without being touched. Do you know how nice it is for a 12-year-old boy to not have his mom touch him? Like, he doesn't want me touching him all the time. Like, that's...
Can we talk about the candles? Come on.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was, I'm sorry to say, when I just saw that, I mean, I'm not on media. Thanks, marketing team, all that. The reel that just got posted about blowing the candles out because of Trexo's cardio.
Yeah.
What?
Amazing.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, there's a young woman who has been in a Trexo for a while, and her mom said it's her first time in her life that she's been able to blow the candles out.
How old is she again?
There was her 36th birthday. I met her a year and a half ago, and
I can't.
We tried for the first time in Calgary, and she loved it. And yeah, no, like,
I can't.
It's been a game changer for her so much that the doctors are kind of gobsmacked. So
How long has she been on the Trexo?
She hadn't tried it before I went to Calgary last spring. So a year.
Just a year? No shite.
Yeah.
I can't. I want to say explicit. That's so badass.
She's so awesome. Like, she's so awesome.
I love it. I love it. I mean, and the smile on her face, like the pride, and like, yeah, I don't need my parents, because, our kiddos, like, they want our kiddos and adults, young adults or older adults that fit the size, but like, they want independence. Like, it's so nice when they don't need us. I think there's something beautiful about that. And for my son, I know I want that more than anything. And so when I'm working with these families, I'm thinking like, okay, if you're willing, we'll go the distance. It might take some time. Like, I've only seen it happen once, where it happened like really like within 72 hours was done. But if you're willing to give, I mean, this is what I tell people. When sometimes I'll hear pushback, like, I don't know if I can journal daily, because I'll encourage people to post within the registry every other day for the first few weeks at least. And then consistently after that, I'll say to them, if I told you I was going to give you $40,000 for you to write 12 sentences every other day, would you do that? And then they're like, oh yeah, I guess that's like, I'm like, that's what we're asking here. So, just the consistency, the effort, and if they're willing, we will get there. It's just, it does look different for different people, but we will get there.
That's doable.
It's more than doable. It's an option for families that don't have an option.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I know I was spinning my wheels 5 years ago wondering what the heck to do, and I did it myself, but like it wasn't the cleanest way to do anything, and I really wish I had somebody kind of going, this is what you need to do, because I was blind. But like ultimately the goal's the same, man. If you can take advantage of it, like do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that blessed me the most is when I'll start working with a mom or dad, and they'll be really nervous to put themselves out there like that, because there's like, I'm letting the world know that we have a child. Well, sometimes they're like, the world doesn't even know my kid has this diagnosis. I'm like, so they're really stepping out. But one of the best feelings is I had a mom that I started working with last week, and within 7 hours, she texted me, said, I've been sobbing for the last 7 hours. As soon as I posted, my husband's employer called and said they're paying for the entire thing. Like, these are kind of things that had she not taken that step of faith and put the registry out there and said, hey, I'm asking for my community to come and support my child, that employer would have never known. So it didn't come through her registry like we, had planned and built up for, but that's okay. Like, the end of the day, she still got the device. And so like, that's a game changer like that. But it came with her taking that step of faith, like, okay. And I try to tell parents, worst case scenario, nothing happens. Okay. People won't remember it and they'll move on. So you just move on. We'll go to the next step,
Yep, absolutely. When I was doing that, it was the biggest hurdle that I ran into was swallowing my pride and just being okay with dumping myself out there in that way. But like, it was huge leading up to it. And then as soon as it was done, it was like peeling off a Band-Aid. It was done.
Yeah.
And it was, then everything just kind of happened.
So hindsight, Mark, like looking back, minus the pride part, like what do you feel you gained by doing it?
Man. Wow. So my life, well, Trexo, I don't know even how to describe that, because my life has completely flipped over since that happened. Basically, my entire community that I was avoiding for the previous 5 years because I was in my dark little hole there, my phone just started going crazy. And I was getting text messages from all the people that I hadn't spoken to, that I had just, because we did a little GoFundMe thing and I threw it out on Facebook, and then the entire world just kind of went whoop and gave me a giant big hug. And 3 days later, everything was completely different. And like what it's been able to offer me personally is I've been able to, well, I'm here, which is crazy. And I've been able to literally affect the change in my son that I was hoping that I could, but didn't have the tools to be able to do. And I'm not just doing it for my own kid now. Like, I get to affect that change with all of these other families, and it's awesome. But at the end of the day, it's like, it was swallowing my pride and just putting it out there. And it was hard for me. It was really hard for my wife. It was, some people take it differently. Like,
Yeah.
I can kind of just brush it off my shoulder and be done with it and don't think about it twice. But she had a really hard time putting herself out there in that way. It took me about a month and a half of kind of saying, like, pleading the case almost. And it had to be done, again, like you were saying, in the proper way, because it's how you're showing yourself out there. And as long as you feel confident in the way that you're doing it, it changes everything. And for us, it took one of her friends to come over who's like a video editing guy and asked us a bunch of questions and did like a little interview, and then edited it and cropped it all out and made it something palatable to be able to kind of put out there. But like, what I'm telling families to do now is to not even do that. Just take a video of their child in the Trexo and you're done. You don't even have to say anything.
Yeah.
They just see it.
It's amazing. And doesn't it feel good when your community comes around and gives you that hug? Like, they go,
Man,
I didn't know you were like, our response when we've done this in the past for our son, we've done 3 different really, really big campaigns for different things. And it was like, we didn't know you were going through this, or man, or like one of my coolest responses, like my husband was a pastor, right? Like, so people would come back that were in his youth group when they were like 12, and they're grown now because we're old. And they're like, you changed my life so much. If I can just bless you a little, like, it's like the most heartwarming, like, oh wait, we've contributed too, right? Like, we've contributed into our society.
Well, that's the thing. It's when you don't realize, but all those people, they're like, we want to be doing this.
Yeah.
We just don't have the opportunity, and it's not that you weren't giving it to us. It's that for whatever reason, it never came there. But at the end of the day, like, they desperately want to be doing something and don't have a venue to do so.
Yeah. So when you clarify those needs and you explain what it's for, I'm really big on a clear message. Like, we're going to get the Trexo. Like, I actually was working with 2 different Trexo families today. I highlighted Trexo's website and put it in their description because people might be like, well, what's a Trexo? And so we want it to be super crystal clear what the ask is for. And one of the things I'll tell families is, like, you don't just say, I just need help. You don't just need help. You need support raising a specific amount of money for a specific thing. And that's where we're going to have clarity. And so I think if you have a clear message, you go through the steps I teach, like, I've seen lots of success. And so, and then we shift our mind to grants and we start diving into the grants. And the grant world is thick, especially depending where you live. So I love to see grants come through. I got a letter today saying another one of my clients got a grant. Like, that is my favorite thing. And so, yeah, I think the one thing that, just to kind of go full circle, when Wyatt was in the hospital, my husband said, as long as you're a fighting buddy, we're going to fight. And if a Trexo or another piece of equipment or a treatment is part of that fight for you, never let money stop you. There is enough money in this world to go around, and we can find it.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. Talking from a guy who was there and absolutely.
There's always a way.
Yeah, there is. It just takes some effort sometimes and a little sweat, but it is what it is.
I did want to say, I know there's probably going to be lots of questions about, like, well, what do you mean your steps? Or I believe we're going to do a webinar together at Trexo. And so I would love to, anybody that wants to join, I'm sure the link will probably be in their bio shortly on Instagram or their website. They can sign up, but I'm excited to kind of go deeper into what it actually tangibly looks like to do these things.
Fabulous. Well, I'm looking at that timer. I can't believe we went that long already. Dang.
This was a good one. We were just flying.
We're
But
just
like, I
running,
think
man.
we covered everything. Is there anything else that we missed?
I don't know.
I think we did
I
pretty
think we're
good.
going to have more opportunities anyway.
Yeah.
Just up on here, chatting away.
I hope people know. I hope they know the biggest question I get outside of, like, just how to do this is, like, what's your fee? And I want people to know there's really no hidden fee. There's really no catch.
Yeah. The question I have been getting is, what does a typical turnaround time kind of look like? Which I know is variable. So it's hard to give an answer in that regard. But, like, if you have a better idea than what I've been telling people, I'll change my tune.
Yeah. I mean, I've had one happen in 72 hours, really, but that is not typical at all. I think around 8 to 12 weeks with a lot of big pushing and, like, really motivated is what I'm seeing. It could be, but honestly, if I raised 40 grand in 6 months, I'd be happy,
This is, the numbers and the timeline that you're talking about are much better than I think people are expecting.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, there's never a guarantee. It's based on the community response and our work ethic. And I do have a lot of people that like to skip step B, or they'll make it the way they think. And they can do whatever they want. At the end of the day, it's their preferences, but there is a reason I coach a certain way. Like, there's a reason for every step. It's not just to make things complicated. It's really to, and they're not complicated. They're easy. There is a reason for the order of the steps. There's a reason for everything I do. And so my biggest piece of advice when I'm working with them outside of, emotional stuff is, like, just please do the steps. If you want to see it, do the steps. When I'm saying, like, do it like this, because I have a proven track record. So
You're going to a pro for a reason.
yeah. So, and I want them to be successful. It makes me feel good. So, like, I want to see them get there. I feel like I'm not achieving and anybody that knows me, I like to achieve. Like, put the carrot in front of me, tell me, like, how to run, and I will run. So I want to help them get there. So hopefully we'll see a lot of people in this next year. My goal is to reach millions, and big, but if we're getting there.
Big. Dang. Gotta go big. Go home.
Yep.
That's how I like to
All or
run.
nothing, baby.
Right. That's right.
Fabulous.
Okay.
Well, we really appreciate you being here, Abby.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure. And I know with all the folks that we speak to, I know everyone that comes to across my desk, my phone, my text, they appreciate what you're doing because it is a thing. It's frustrating, it's stressful, it's a thing. And funding, as with every aspect in life, is such a stressful thing of life. And so we appreciate what you're doing for those out there. And thank you for joining us for sure. It's been a pleasure.
I feel honored to work with an organization like Trexo. Best people, best company, best product, bar none.
Thank you. It is really nice to have somebody that we can kind of funnel people to be able to help them with these goals, because as we know, these kids are expensive, more so necessary than the other one. And they're expensive.
Yeah.
And there are people out there that want to help, and we just got to be able to connect the two together. And it is awesome to have people like you that do that.
Thank you. I am glad to be here.
Awesome. Okay, guys. Well, we are going to continue this, I think, at another time. We're going to do webinars. We'll be lots and lots of videos of Abby and lots of questions we'll be able to help out with, and we'll send her links into the background here so you guys can connect with her. And if you have any questions, reach out.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome.